and welcome to Barcelona, where I'm not driving the new Volvo XC60. And that's because I've got it in pilot assist mode, which is an option on this car, and up to 130 km an hour, it will steer itself, change gears, brake, accelerate, and to be honest, I'm not really sure why I'm here.
For Volvo, the XC60 is a big deal. It's the best-selling model in their lineup and the best-selling vehicle in its segment in Europe. In its final year of sales, after being on the market for nearly 9 years, it had a record year. In fact, they're still building the old model until later this year to keep up with demand. And so, there was big pressure to get this one right.
So today I've sampled the most powerful petrol, the T6, and I've driven the most powerful diesel, the D5. Volvo have confirmed that all 4 of the 5 engines that are available will be available in South Africa. So that's 2 diesels, 2 petrols, and the T8 twin engine hybrid, that's still under consideration. And I've got to be honest, I'd have the diesel. And it's really interesting because Volvo have just announced that they're not going to be developing new diesels anymore, which almost seems like a pity when you drive the D5 because it's such a good motor for 2 reasons. One, very, very quiet. I actually had to ask my co-driver if we were in a petrol or a diesel because I couldn't tell and he'd picked out the car. And secondly, because of its power pulse technology, which I don't think is a gimmick. I really do think it works. They debuted it on the S90 and we'll put a graphic on the screen for you right now. Mr. Editor, if you could please, just a little video, thank you. So in summary, basically the engine charges up a cylinder full of compressed air. They push that compressed air through the turbocharger to spool it up before the exhaust gases can catch up. So it reduces turbo lag, and you really do notice it especially in slow speed situations. You know, you come off a speed bump and you get back on the throttle, and normally a turbo diesel kind of has this wait, whoosh kind of feeling. But the Volvo doesn't have that, and so I think it really does work. Obviously, this being a new Volvo, there are some new safety systems to talk about. Volvo releases new safety systems faster than Zuma can get himself involved in another corruption scandal. But the 3 new ones launching on this car are
Blind spot information with steer assist. This system kicks in if you try to change lanes or wander into the next lane accidentally. If it detects a vehicle approaching from behind, it will steer your car back into your lane. Next up, oncoming lane mitigation acts to help avoid head-on collisions by steering your car back into your lane if it detects oncoming traffic. And if the driver acts to swerve around a vehicle, pedestrian or large animal, city safety with steering support will activate, helping the driver to steer around the object and stabilize the car by braking the inside wheels. But that's just active safety. Volvo continues to be very passionate about passive safety, continuously smashing their cars to pieces in a bid to make them as safe as possible. And it seems to be working because the XC90, S90 and V90 are the 3 safest cars ever tested by Euro NCAP. And we expect the XC60 to follow suit.
But let's get back to the similarities between XC60 and XC90. So if you've sat in an XC90 or been for a drive in one, or you drive one already, the interior in here will be very, very familiar to you. It's got the same vertical sensors touchscreen that the XC90 has, although it's just a little smaller. I've got the same digital instruments in front of me, which interestingly will be included as standard on all cars sold in South Africa. Steering wheel very similar, gear knob, the way you start the car, it's all very similar. One thing they've tried to do in this car to differentiate it from the XC90 is use a strip of what they're calling driftwood on the dashboard. And that raises some interesting questions for me, because do they have a sort of swarm of Volvo employees who walk up and down beaches across the world searching for driftwood? Or have they maybe sort of created a lab with a little little wave machine, and they've got some salt water, sort of put the driftwood out there, and it just kind of gently washes over the driftwood for years until they need it for a Volvo dashboard. I'm not really sure. I kind of think it's just driftwood inspired, but it looks very nice and it feels very nice, so I'll give them that. Volvo have also added quite a bit of new tech in here. Now, the thing is that in South Africa, we don't get the full suite of connectivity. They haven't rolled it out yet down in our country. But what you can do is you can connect the car to your Wi-Fi at home, so that it will update all its technology all the time. And you can use a mobile hotspot or a mobile MiFi device to create an internet connection for the car. And that allows you to use Google search, for instance, which is really handy. You've got access to basically the entire of Google. You can search for a restaurant, search for a hotel, and then you can just put that straight into the maps on the car and it will direct you to that destination. It's also got Spotify, which unfortunately doesn't work in South Africa as well, but it has TuneIn, which I really like. I use TuneIn all the time actually to listen to overseas radio stations, so it's pretty cool that that is standard on the car. For me at the moment, autonomous driving is sort of neither here nor there. Volvo calls this semi-autonomous. They say it's driver in the loop, which means that you've got to be aware of what's going on. You've got to have your hands on the steering wheel, you've got to be looking ahead, and you are ultimately in control of the car. But interestingly, in their press material, they have a photo of a very good-looking Swedish man sitting behind the steering wheel of a car with his legs crossed, reading a magazine. And maybe that's the vision for the future, but right now, it's not like that. You've really got to sort of keep an eye on the system, and although I can take my hands off the wheel, it'll only really let me do that for about 10 seconds, and then it'll beep and tell me I've got to put my hands back on the wheel. And let's be honest, if you're doing 120 k's an hour, you probably should have your hands on the steering wheel at all times. I feel like Volvo have a very strong contender here for this medium premium SUV market, especially to take the fight to the German establishment. Of course, this was the best-selling SUV in its segment, so all they really have to do is maintain their market dominance. I think as a package, the XC60 in some ways actually works a bit better than the XC90, and it's mostly got to do with the engines. We've got the same engines in here as the XC90 with exactly the same power outputs, so it doesn't have to work as hard to get the car moving, and I think that should have maybe a little bit of a benefit in terms of acceleration and speed, but it'll actually have quite a bit of benefits in terms of fuel consumption. And if you are thinking about one of these and you're trying to choose between petrol and diesel, I would highly recommend the D5 diesel. This is definitely one of the better diesels that I've ever sampled in a car. It will be in South Africa in the second quarter of next year, so that's sort of April, May, June territory. They're not committing to a date yet. They're also not committing to pricing just yet, but expect it to be around the BMW X3, Audi Q5, Mercedes GLC kind of area. Can't wait to get hold of one on local roads. As soon as they arrive, we will of course go on the local launch, and then we'll get the test car. I can't wait to make another video about it, really get to know this car very well, especially on the correct side of the road. Particularly excited about that, and hopefully we'll get a chance to take this car onto a private test track and really test all the safety systems that it has, because at the moment I just have to take Volvo's word for it that they all work. Thanks very much for watching. Do let us know what you think of this brand new Volvo XC60 in the comments below. I have been and probably will continue to be Ciro De Siena. Ciao.